Best of Times live from 710 Keel Studios in Shreveport, Louisiana, celebrating age and maturity, helping you make the best years of your life the best they can be. The Best of Times. Your host, Gary Calligas.
Hello, radio listeners. I'm Gary Calligas, the publisher of The Best of Times, the only magazine and radio show for mature adults in Northwest Louisiana. I thank you for listening to our show today, and also thanking those who might be listening live via the internet at www.710keel.com. Also thanking those who might be listening via the Radio Pup or the Keel application on their Apple and Android devices. In just a few minutes, we're going to learn how to focus on ways to inspire retirees to keep moving, keep doing, and just keep living. So stay tuned to the show for some very interesting and beneficial information for you and your loved ones. Be sure to pick up the current issue of The Best of Times at one of our 270 distribution locations. We thank you for the many compliments about our magazine. We do appreciate hearing from you. Remember, if you're unable to find a printed copy at one of our 270 distribution locations, you can always visit our popular website at www.thebestoftimesnews.com to view both current and past issues of our magazine, as well as to view and download the current 2020 Silver Pages Senior Resource Directory. In addition, you can listen to previously broadcast radio shows here on the Best of Times Radio Hour. We'll be right back with more information, but now a word from our sponsors and advertisers who make this radio show possible. You're listening to the Best of Times Radio Hour here on News Radio 710 Keel, proudly presented by AARP Louisiana and A-Bears Town & Country of Shreveport, your Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, and Jeep dealer.
Gary Calligas will be right back with more Best of Times Radio Hour after this on 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. Gary's back with more Best of Times Radio Hour on 101.7 FM and 710 Keel.
Welcome back to our show, the Best of Times Radio Hour, proudly presented by AARP Louisiana and A-Bears Town & Country of Shreveport, your Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, and Jeep dealer. I'm Gary Calligas, and I do thank you for listening to our show today. Joining me on my show as a special guest is Miss Heidi Herman, who is the author of a very inspiring and both educational book that's called On with the Butter, Spread More Living onto Your Everyday Life. So thank you for joining us today, Heidi, on our radio show here on the Best of Times Radio Hour.
Thank you so much, Gary. It's great to be here today.
Well, I want to tell my listeners, I get a lot of publicists that send me books to read, Heidi, quite a few, and I found your book quite fascinating. I've actually read it twice. And I think I'm telling my listeners it's available on Amazon. It's going to be available on my website to link into whatever. And so I hope everybody will consider getting this as a gift for their loved one. Definitely the seniors and boomers in the area. I will put her on the spot here. I thought your outline of this book, and I think you've written other books, that it's pretty amazing how you formatted this. It's a very easy read, but it has so much valuable information. Every chapter has a takeaway, and it makes you think, and also it's going to help you to spread more of your living into everyday life, and from learning to be a yes person to be a positive person, and keep learning and give some time. And I love the chapter being a hometown tourist. that was a great one, but a lot of people don't think about that. But so let's get into it. First of all, you talk a lot about your mom in the book. So was she an inspiration to you?
I do, yes. I had an amazing mother. She was Icelandic. She met my father during World War II. They got married, came to the United States, and she was an entrepreneur. She was a mother to 10 children, and she was a life adventurer. I learned everything about zest, zeal, and inspiration from her, definitely.
Wow. So what led you to write this book? What was the...
Well, Mom loved just embracing life and really taught that to me. And I grew up thinking that was kind of a normal way, is just whatever there is to do, do that thing and take the side road, and if you see a flyer of some event, stop and take a look at it. And I just thought everybody lived like that. And through the years, I discovered that not everybody approaches life in that way.
No,
and
they do not.
Right. It became so much more clear when Mom was in her 90s, and especially after she had a stroke, and people really started to pay attention to say, my goodness, Ida, her name, Ida, you are 92, you're 93, you're still doing this stuff. And so she really inspired so many people. I wanted to share what I had learned about how to do this. And that's really where the book came from, was just my insights on watching how she embraced life and how I learned to do it, and what I thought I might be able to share with others on how they could be like that too.
Well, that's a positive thought about a parent or a grandparent or a loved one that inspires you. I mean, you're talking about some similar things that my mother, passed away at 96, but was quite active up to 1 month before she passed. And she, when I'm reading your book, I'm looking at some of the things that she's of ethnicity. I'm of Greek Hellenic ethnicity. So I'm both my parents as well as my mom and dad and many of my relatives, and I see a lot of that in there. A lot of the European, a lot of the positive aspects of life and moving on and not making a lot of complaints. So your book is very, again, it's fascinating, and I like. Let's talk about some of the. Well, we talked about your mother was from Iceland, so that's your connection there, right? But I'm sure you've gone back a few times.
Oh yeah, I've been back 9 times, I think now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And a lot of people don't know a lot about Iceland, though. I will tell you that. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's a very small country that we don't think too much about when it's not on the radar, right?
Exactly. Yes, it's kind of out there. It's unique, and it is surprising though. Everybody knows somebody who's been there, wants to go there, or it's on their bucket list. And
on the bucket list, because I think over the past 3 years, my good friends of mine have been. I've never been. We wanted to go on cruises in that area, and the cruise ships do stop in different areas of Iceland and give them an opportunity to spend a day or sometimes more than one day in that country. Mm-hmm. So that's fascinating there. So why is the idea of vitality and aging so important to you?
That's an interesting question. It is really something that I have observed, people being so inspired by my mother, and as I go through life, and when I pass my 40s and my 50s, and I look at some of my friends who have been afraid to retire and afraid to get old because we buy into that concept of over the hill and the good years are behind us. And, we think in our 20s and 30s, oh, the best is yet to come. And we don't think necessarily that in our 50s and 60s and 70s. But it's true. Everything that you have not done yet is still in front of you, and everything that you've done and enjoyed is a repeat opportunity. So there's never a time when we should have it in our mind that vitality and enjoying life is behind us.
Very true. And one of your chapters, I believe it's one of the first chapters, is called The Challenging, the Practice of Saying Yes. I mean, if you just think about that one, so many people that look gloomy and are aging beyond belief are the no persons or the negative persons that are saying, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to try that. I don't want to try this particular aspect. I don't want to, to do something out of the ordinary, right?
Exactly. And we close ourselves off to so many opportunities. And whether it has to do with aging or just in today's odd world of COVID and social distancing, it's so easy to say, I can't because of this. Whether it's a physical limitation we have or social distancing, whatever, you just, instead of saying, I can't, because if we can just train our brain to say, I can do it this way,
Right.
you know, you can still do so many things and engage in life just differently. And whether it's because of COVID or whether because, you know, the knees or the hips or the back aren't quite what they used to be. Well,
good point. With
okay.
accommodation, you know, you might want to enjoy, which my mother did. Take this one. People said, why is your mother, her name was Pyra Calligas, why does Pyra, she's in her 90s, why does she lift weights? She would lift 5 pounds weights, like 3 times a day. And she would be in her wheelchair, and people would just like get onto her. I says, she enjoys it. And I think it's helping her. She had a routine in physical therapy, and she continued lifting weights, and people ridiculed her at first, but she didn't care. She says, if I can keep doing it, I'm going to do it for 1 pound weights until I die. And so she would, that was like a regimen, which with accommodation, but it added to her vitality. I know it did, and other things that she did, but that was one little small thing that some of her seniors younger than her would criticize her. Oh, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to do this or that. Why do that? And plus, she said she enjoyed it, and really, she did.
Well, I think that is fantastic. And as long as the doctor isn't saying it's a bad thing, I tell you what, my mom would do planks every day.
Wow.
And at 93 years old, she could hold a plank for 2 minutes.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. But you're right about the aging, and we're going to inspire you today because her book gives you some ideas about what we're talking about. Every chapter has a checklist, I would call it, right? And a checklist of things to do. Heidi's not going to say do all of them, but if you do 3 or 4 of them, boy, you've met that particular goal, and you can consider doing other ones. I mean, some you're not going to like, some you can do, some you might not want to, but there are a lot of possibilities in here, and some of them go extensively for pages and pages. But I'm saying the one I thought was fascinating in here is, you know, do something out of the ordinary. I mean, Heidi mentioned that if you see about an event, I hear more people, I'm too old to go there. I don't want to go. I don't want to learn anything new. I mean, it inspires you. You get to meet people. You get to interact. You just don't want to watch TV and let people dialogue to you all the time, right? Even in this COVID time.
Exactly.
Even in this COVID situation time. The other aspect, I think, so what is, in your opinion, that people get inactive as they grow older? Do they just give up, or do they just feel that, well, now that I'm 65, I'm going to go home and watch TV and eat on the couch and not even get up once or twice a day, maybe to use the restroom, right? Do you hear that?
Exactly, yeah. And there are so many things that where we get into our own mind sometimes, or we listen to what others tell us, and it's difficult to get past that sometime. And I recall once my mom and I had a conversation about how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were. So if you didn't know when you were born and you didn't have that preconceived idea of, oh, well, somebody who's, 80 years old shouldn't be going ziplining. You can't do that, but my mom did. At 90 years old,
awesome.
She ziplined the Mall of America.
That's awesome.
We have to get beyond that. And I think that's part of what comes from that fear and that difficulty getting past the paradigm of retirement is there's so much connected with our career and who we are in midlife, as far as I'm an office manager, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a truck driver, or I'm a school teacher. That career path ties into our identity so much that when we go into retirement, it's difficult to say, oh, yes, I used to drive trucks full time, and now I love going to art museums, or I love painting pottery, or kind of getting into activities and ideas that we never even thought remotely connected with what was acceptable in our life.
That's right.
And that's really where it all comes from, I think.
That is true. The other thing I think you touch throughout your book. By the way, I'm going to mention her book. Her book is called On with the Butter. And tell the listeners about the title.
The title comes from an Icelandic expression. One of my mother's favorite expressions in English was "just keep moving." That was her mantra. And in Icelandic, there's an expression that is "áfram með smorðið," and it literally means "on with the butter." And it's a expression to encourage keep moving, keep going.
Keep churning that butter, right? Is that what it means?
Yes.
Keep churning the butter to make it better.
It's the perfect connection, exactly. So just keep it going, forge ahead, and keep moving. Yeah.
Fascinating to have you again on my show to discuss your book, On with the Butter, Spread More Living Onto Everyday Life. You talk about it throughout the book, is having a purpose in life. That's important. And why is that important?
Yes, I think each one of us, we have to have purpose in life in order to plan, to wake up every day and look forward to what's next. And I think it's just sort of a basic human need, to have purposefulness in life. And
well, haven't you seen people
that
give you the negative feeling? I meet with thousands and thousands of people yearly. Even though now I'm 70, when I started this I was 50, and they called me the young person. Now they call me I'm part of the gang. But again, I just like you. I don't feel like 70. I feel like I'm in 40s, and my wife worries about me sometimes. I try too many things that I shouldn't, and I luckily hadn't hurt myself. But I do try things. Then my sons and daughter thinks I'm stupid sometimes. But hey. Why not? We've got to live. We've got to enjoy it. I don't say no to a lot of things, Heidi. And they're like, why, Dad? You need to slow down. I don't. So going back to that idea there, I have so many people said, well, I don't know what I've contributed to my family, what I've contributed to the world, what I've contributed. They're like, and I tell them, you've been a successful, one lady, she was a successful nurse. I know her. Being in a nursing, taking care of people. You cared for people. You brought them back to a more positive, independent life. But you telling me that you had no purpose? You did have purpose. You still have purpose. You're still caring for your family members, your kids, your grandkids. But she was so negative that she didn't have the big purpose in life that can be put on a billboard. Probably that's the scenario I'm looking at there. But have you seen people like that don't feel like they've done anything?
There definitely are many that I have met like that. And I think when someone approaches me with that question, I've given it a lot of thought. And I think sometimes in retirement, we have to kind of give ourselves a break, because not everyone is going to change the world, but everyone changes the life of at least someone.
Oh, yes.
And whether you have something small that you do or something big that you do, your life matters. But going one step beyond that, when we look at purposefulness and what's ahead of us tomorrow, it really doesn't have to be changing the world.
No,
it just has to be a purpose that brings you joy. If you decide to get an RV and go travel and see every state park or every national preserve in the United States, and you have the joy of communing with nature and seeing wonderful things, that is enough. That is purpose for your life. Your life does not necessarily have to have purpose and impact on other people.
Definitely true. One of my favorite, we're going to ask you your favorite chapter, but I'll tell you mine. One of my favorite chapters is because I've been promoting this for the past 5 years, and it's catching root. I'm patting myself on the back. is I'm trying to get more families and more seniors and boomers primarily to celebrate family and their heritage by writing down their stories to pass it down from generation to generation. I had a gentleman today that comes up to me and says, Gary, I hear your lecture and I hear you on the radio talking about that, but I don't have any stories to tell my grandkids or my kids' legacy. I says, you're absolutely wrong. I know you have stories. So I started quizzing him a few things. He says, well, that was good. I should write that one down for him. There's always a story to tell and a family history to parlay. And this guy assumes his family knows all this stuff. And I says, have you told them? No. So that means nobody knows if you've ever told them. You're telling me today, but you haven't told them that story. So that was a good example. So her chapter on family heritage, save the memories for the next generation. That's what I tell them. If you don't write them down now, they're not going to pull them out of the grave, and they're going to be lost forever. And there are many remarkable stories of people throughout the world that we've lost. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Whether they're stories of things that they've been through, experiences they've had, funny moments, but how many of us also wish we had Grandma's special cookie recipe?
True.
Or wish we had that secret of how Grandpa was always able to, fix the bicycles, or his woodworking that was just amazing. Everybody has these amazing parents and grandparents and the skills and the family traditions that I think sometimes we're losing, passing those down. And some of it you alluded to, the immigration and our connections with our countries of origin several generations back. Some of those things we've lost in the process of becoming Americans, and we don't hold on to those old country traditions as much. And it would just be so wonderful to bring some of those back now and then,
Well, and those stories, as you said, inspire our grandkids and our kids and probably our, other ancestors down the line. If they don't know those stories and don't know that heritage, I mean, you're right. I'm proud to be American. My father came over here from the old country and thought America was the wonder. He would do anything. He served in the army. He did everything he could. He told me he didn't mind paying taxes because he thought that was the good of our country, to pay any tax that needed to be paid to help our America and to spread that freedom. He came from oppressed countries in Greece and Romania and Russia and learned all about communism and socialism, et cetera, and spread the negatives about those to people all over the country that he met with. And so he's been there, done that. He said he didn't want that to happen in America. But going back to the heritage, yes, I think it's important for our kids and grandchildren. That's why I keep emphasizing to my listeners and radio readers that you need to write the stories down. It doesn't have to be a novel written for television, but at least tell them a bit of stories about your heritage and why, and the recipes and the idioms. And I told one person, he just retired, and I said, what are you doing? He says, nothing. You have a hobby? A little gardening. And I said, why don't you write your stories down? You told me you were going to do that before you retired, but you didn't have time because you were full-time working. Now you got plenty of time. And so he agreed. He said, that might be a bad idea. I can spend an hour or so a day writing down some of these stories and doing some research on ancestry and all these, websites that you can analyze now, which you can really find a lot of cool stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
So, again, that was my favorite chapter. So what's your favorite chapter?
Oh, I had so much fun with all of those. And I want to add a little piece to what you're saying. I completely support the idea of writing down these stories and preserving them for the next generation. But I know there are a lot of people out there who are just not comfortable writing. Whether it's the physical process of writing or they don't feel like they have the skill. With today's technology, you can do videos on your phone. You can use voice-to-text technology. There's so many different ways that you can record those stories down even without having to physically write them. So call on those grandkids to help you if you need help.
You're right about that. Even yours truly has done that. He's done that. Even though he writes, he does record and video some of the segments and puts them on a hard drive so the grandkids, the kids can access them. So yes, it's very simple. Now I've told a lot of people, and I've visited assisted living, and I tell them as well, why don't you make it easier for these people to write down their life stories by let them videotape it on an iPhone or iPad. And a lot of them are doing that. A lot of people, you're right, they're using technology, but a lot of people don't use the paper and pen. But back in the old days when you had to do that, which I started with my parents and my grandparents, luckily I interviewed them, not extensively. I wish I had asked more questions than the questions I gleaned and wrote down many, many years ago. That was a long time ago, but luckily I saved them, and my kids are fascinating that I saved all these stories from the past.
That's wonderful.
So,
but yes, to answer your question, I think my favorite chapter is Walk on the Wild Side.
Oh.
Because it's all about challenging your comfort zone, and to me, it really helps people get past that predefined mindset of who they are as an individual and who they've been in their working life, in their adult life, and just kind of shake things up. Think about some things that you've never done before, and just what seems a little bit out of character and what would be kind of challenging to help you grow as a person and experience some new avenues of activity.
Yeah, I think one of your suggestions was, why don't you try going to a ballet, an opera, or some other thing that you've hated before? You hated it for probably unknown reasons. Well, try it. You might like it, right? That's the wild side. Try it.
There are so many people who start out with the preconceived idea, I don't want to go to the ballet. No, I would hate that. And it's not because they've ever experienced it. They just have the preconceived idea that they would hate it.
That is true. The other thing, learning a foreign language. I said, wow. I had one lady said, well, why should I learn a foreign language? I'm 84. I said, would that be a challenge, and learn a foreign language enough to be able to go visit that country and say a few words and dialogue with the people? Wouldn't that be fascinating? And she said, that might not be a bad idea. I've always wanted to learn Italian, but I've never have. And I think I'm going to learn a little bit of Italian and go over there. But as I told her, you can do that. I want you to do it, but you can also get apps that will help you in translating and going back and forth. Gary's done that visiting various countries, including China. That they have the most remarkable Mandarin Chinese to English app I've ever seen in the whole entire world. It works, too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because that's a that's a complex language. I could never learn that one. But if you have the app and it tells you and it speaks for you and it translates for you, it works real well. So no,
See, that's wonderful how you take things like technology and learning a new skill and how it can lead to travel and, tasting new cuisine and food and maybe starting correspondence with somebody from a foreign country. There are all kinds of activities that can be sparked and spawned from one little thing that you start.
We talked about heavily talking about celebrate family and heritage is our chapter 4. Take the scenic route. You might want to comment about that one. I thought that's a cute chapter.
Oh yes, taking the scenic route I think is probably one of my favorite things to do just in life. If I have the option of taking one route that's interstate or some 2-lane state highway, I will always take the smaller one. But I think it allows us the opportunity to come across strange and unusual things, or just that slice of life that you wouldn't see from the interstate.
That's exactly right. And, and I can remember, God, I'm an old person to mention this. I remember taking bus trips, and the bus route would never along the major highways. They would go always, and you would see some beautiful scenery throughout the country, bus and train trips and so forth. So, so I had one lady tell me, "You mean to tell me should I go take the bus?" I said, "I'm not saying that, but you might want to try the Amtrak occasionally." I think they're back up and running even in this COVID time as well. Another chapter is I emphasize to my listeners and readers, which keep learning. I mean, and people say, well, I've learned enough. No, you haven't learned enough. You need to learn new things. As my father-in-law, I love him. When he was 84, he says, I told him to get a computer because he never had a computer and to do email and Skype to the old country. And he says, I'm too old for that. I says, you're never too old. And so we educated him a little bit and gave him some skills. He loved it. He says, why didn't you tell me about this at 70? That was his sense. He was 84. And he thought he was fascinated by it. He said, I could have done this all along at 70. Why did I have to wait 14 years? And I said, Father, there wasn't as proficient as it was 14 years ago. We were using it, but it was, this was about 5 years ago that he passed. But before that, he utilized it for about 5 or 10 years. So it was very inspiring to her. And likewise, my mother, who never loved technology that much, we finally got into her use of iPads, and she thought was fascinating that she could FaceTime and do all that kind of things with the grandkids. And so it was cool. So learning about things, learning about items that you love, especially cooking. I think more people in their retirement years tend to experiment on cooking. Have you seen that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I think any type of learning is good. Just the studies that have been done on the benefit of any type of learning, preserving your problem-solving ability, and it lowers your risk of Alzheimer's and delays the onset of dementia, all kinds of benefits to it. And it can be simple as learning a new card game. You don't have to go back to school to learn something, but learning new recipes or doing things in the kitchen, taking a cooking class, anything really can be learning as long as you're learning and adding. It's fun. It adds a little entertainment to life, and it keeps your mind sharp. So,
and likewise, learning a musical instrument, a piano, playing. I've seen people in their 70s and 80s pick up an instrument they've never picked up before, and they're like fascinated. They're not playing, Beethoven or Mozart, but they're playing the piano and enjoying it and doing it every day. And it's like, wow.
Yes.
And I went to one lady and she said, would you join me, Gary? I know that you play the piano. I'd love to do a duet with you. So we did a duet. She said, this was the most inspiring thing that I've never taken up piano. Now I'm 82 years old. I'm playing the piano. And she was like, almost in tears. But she's getting really good, and she never picked up a musical instrument before. Never. And now she just picked it up less than a year and doing real well, and bought her own self a piano. So she's home alone. So that was, and I think it's good for her. It's really good. As we said, it's good for her. Your book is called A Guidebook to Activities in Life. So how do you hope people are going to use this book?
I would love for people to really read through this and get a few ideas. I don't expect somebody to look through, and I think we counted up, there's over 200 individual little ideas in here. I don't expect somebody to embrace all of them, but I would love for them to be the inspiration point that you could take off and add your own direction to it and add more activities to it, and just for it to be a way to inspire the thought process on, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can go out and pursue this and add that hobby and go out and explore this part of life.
That's some great advice. The other aspect, I think you talk about it, but I still think that we're talking about a purposeful life, and I've had guests on here to talk about that, and it's sometimes mind-boggling, some of my listeners and readers, but I think one of the aspects that you talk about in your book could lead to those negative people that say, I don't have a purpose. Well, if you give your time by volunteering and joining an organization, whether it's church, charity, or whatever, there you're going to have a purpose. You're going to share something to hopefully help one or more or thousands of people. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And there are so many different ways to give back, whether it's working with a local school or library, reading to children, or helping with Habitat with Humanity, or if you really loved business and working in your career, mentoring new small business owners and sharing some of your knowledge in that way. There are so many different ways. And I know me personally, I have benefited from the advice of ladies older than myself on how to bake a proper pie and how to get your bread to rise. There have been so many questions I have where I can go to an expert in a field, and I just gain so much knowledge. And all of that is so important just to keep us all going forward and moving.
Well, I don't know about all communities in the United States, but I will tell you 20 years ago when we founded our magazine and radio show, we had the distinct pleasure to hearing from some seniors and boomers telling us, Gary, you tell us to volunteer, but we don't know where to volunteer. So we said, we're going to contact almost every organization in any aspect in the area and gather everywhere you could possibly volunteer your services. And we have been updating that for 20 years, and it's our most popular part of our publication that we print annually, that all the organizations and agencies says, wow, this is like wonderful. New people come in town, they know who to call, and they come visit us. And so it's that's one thing. When you move into a new city, if you don't know the contact or resources, it's difficult. And especially we've had an influx of new people, out people going on, and that we found was one of our made us feel humble that we're connecting people quickly without losing their loss of thought or their experience or whatever, helping their church, their food bank, whatever. That I think a sharing of these ideas could greatly help everyone and improve their vitality and make you have a more positive retirement. When you say that, so Heidi?
Well, that is certainly my goal. It's certainly my hope. I would love for that to be the result of reading the book and to spark more ideas and just a greater enjoyment of life, definitely.
So, what would be your single message that you want to tell my readers to remember you about your book?
To just keep moving. Right. I think that was my mom's singular motto and idea. And I think that in and of itself is the most important thing that we can do. Just keep moving, even if it's around our own house, moving our mind, reading a book, connecting, talking on the phone, and then getting out as much as we safely can in these days, just to keep moving through life, keep moving through new experiences, and enjoy life in whatever form it is right now.
So I'm just thinking about something. Are all Icelandic people very positive in nature? Are they on the journal and the population then and now? Are they more a positive kind of culture and a positive more population in their cities there?
I would say from their point of view, absolutely. From our view to them is a little bit more pragmatic. But Scandinavian countries, between Norway, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Iceland, they all rank in like the top 10 happiest countries in the world, like year after year after year. And yet some of their philosophies almost come across as a little dark. The final quote, I peppered quotes throughout this book because I am just I'm a big fan of quotes. And I used one from Hans Christian Andersen, who was the Danish author of The Little Mermaid and The Ugly Duckling. Right. His advice was, enjoy life. There's plenty of time to be dead. And that seems a little dark, but on the other side, it can be very, very positive and upbeat. And it's like, yeah, live in the moment. Live what's right in front of you. Don't borrow worry from tomorrow, because it's going to happen whether or not you waste energy on worrying about it. So enjoy today. And that's really where a lot of that philosophy of the Icelandic community comes from. And one of their common expressions is "Þetta reddest." It'll all work out.
and smile. The Scandinavian people that I've met in various places, I have never been to that part of Europe, but and hopefully someday soon we'll go to Iceland. We planned to go there to see the Northern Lights, but that didn't work out last year. But I always wanted to go there, and I really wanted to stay in one of those Icelandic hotels that is all ice. To put you on another pedestal, she has other books, and you're a prolific writer. You write fiction, short story collection. Her Viking Heart. Wow, that must be is that a woman's type, a girly ladies type of book?
Yeah, it is women's contemporary fiction. Yes.
Oh. And you've also put together an Icelandic cookbook. Which I can't think of anything that's Icelandic. Give us one thing that's an Icelandic food item.
My favorite recipe from that book is the Icelandic brown bread. It's very traditional, and when we translated them over from Icelandic and then had to convert all the measurements and everything, the original recipe, it had a list of ingredients and simply said, mix, bake. And I translated that way. I'm like, Mom, I don't understand this. It says mix bake. I mean, bake it at what temperature for how long? And she said, oh, well, we used to make that, and we would put it in coffee cans where open on one side, and we would put it down in one of the hot springs, and then you go play for the day. And when you come back, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, however long, and then you pull it back up. It's all cooked, but you really can't overcook it. So, and that's very true.
Wow.
I consider that from the Viking days, it's the original dump recipe. You know, one of those where you throw everything into a pot and mix it up.
Wow, and you better pass that one down from generation. Now that you got it in the cookbook, it will be passed down from generation to generation. Heidi Herman, and again, thank you for joining us today here on the Best of Times Radio Hour. Best of luck to you, and continue having that positive attitude. I love positive attitude in ladies and gentlemen as well.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I'm happy to have been here today.
Well, good luck to you. Keep in touch. Thank you for listening to our show today. Hope you join us next Saturday for another interesting show that will benefit you and your loved ones. Don't forget to pick up your personal copy of The Best of Times at one of our 522 distribution locations. May God bless you and your family. God bless America. Have a great day and a great weekend. Thank you again for listening to our show. I'm Gary Calligas, wishing you and yours the best of times both today and every day. Have a great day.
You've been listening to The Best of Times on 710 Keel. Join us again next Saturday at 9 for The Best of Times. This is News Radio 710 Keel, KEEL, Shreveport, Bossier.